Um, I mean, they're all similar every year, but I think the one thing, and I talked about, was as the year was finishing last year and just sitting on planes and kind of writing notes about what's going on and what you're looking at and where it's going. I kept coming back to like it's time. I just kept coming into my head. It's time. It's time for us to move forward. Uh, and I say that from the standpoint of kind of knowing where our guys were going, knowing that what was going on with the pitching and the players that we had acquired, where they were kind of moving towards. And I felt like this is time. And we talk about where we're trying to go, and Derek and ownership has been very clear of where we want to go, the organization that we want to build. And it just felt like it's time to kind of get this thing to the hill where we're not always fighting upstream or climbing that hill. It's time to get this thing going downhill a little bit. And I think I talked about it in Miami that I think we're going to be disappointed if we don't make measurable strides. And, to that, how far that goes, then it's kind of up to us and it's up to our guys to take those strides. So that is going to unfold as the season goes. But there will be disappointment if we don't make measurable gains this year.
How much responsibility do you take for the final record?
Well, I mean, I think you got to take it to heart. Another thing we talk about, you got to take things personal, and you got to take losses, like anybody else. For me, like, I'll evaluate myself and how I handle situations or certain things. You want to get better at that, and if it's an area that I'm not quite sure about, I may talk to someone. So I'm going to take my responsibility in improving and getting better and having better relationships or whatever that may be. But at the end of the day, you do your best, you put your best out there, and very wise man always said you got to have X talent to win. And I think we got to get to X, right? And I think if we looked at last year and we were realistic, what we did through the course of the year, not that you don't take responsibility, but you felt like we weren't good enough to be a playoff team at that point. Obviously that's what I'm talking about, it's time to take strides forward towards that.
How close do you think some of these young guys that we've heard so much about, after the changes were made a couple years ago, all this young talent kind of infused into the system, how close are we to seeing some of those guys become everyday players even starting this season?
Well, I think it doesn't, you hate to say the start of the season because then you put all this amped up into your club who leaves here, right? And quite honestly, over all the years of playing and coaching and managing, the team you leave with is very seldom the team you finish with. And that's on the best teams, right? There's changes, there's injuries, guys come in, guys go out. So, but as far as our guys getting to the surface, I think we're getting a lot of guys to the surface, right? Guys that we've, some of our young drafts from a couple of years back, and like a Brax Garrett and a Trevor Rogers, those guys, some of those guys, Edouard surfacing, coming to the surface, right? And then you start thinking about the guys that you've traded for, and Sixto, Edouard, Sanchez, Guzman, Nieder. There's a lot of guys that are getting to the surface, right? Where that that water's getting a little bit muddied, right? Where who's it going to be? Who's coming forward, right? So I think the biggest thing is that it's coming to the surface. You just don't know when it's going to pop its head up, right? You never know with the guys. Some guys pop up and they're good right away, instantly, and never look back. Other guys, it takes that up, take a little hit, got to go back down. Next time they come up, you get a different guy. So that's kind of up to us to continue to develop, but it's also up to them to make the adjustments.
Last couple of years, you did have so many young kids. There's a lot of development going on, obviously, particularly. So what kind of identity this year would you like to see your team have? It doesn't seem like you're sort of yet has found that identity of what the Miami Marlins are.
And I don't know if you ever know, like, what your culture you want it to be, and you never quite know the identity. The one of the things we talked about is building a team that's athletic and with speed, but you want all aspects, right? So you don't know quite what your identity is until you have your personnel on the field and see what's going on with them and what they're going to do. But I think the one identity we want a club that starts to exude that confidence and starts to show a little bit of swag and starts to have a little pushback and an expectation that we're better than this if we're not playing well. So you're wanting your club to take that step forward as far as what we expect from ourselves, not necessarily what the baseball world thinks of what's going to happen in the 2020 season. We have to have an expectation that where are we going? And we've got to raise our expectations as far as internally within our group.
Now, there's a lot of talk, hearing from you and from Michael earlier, about the young pitching on this team. I think the question a lot of people may have is where's the offense going to come from? Where are the runs going to come from in this particular season? How do you see this offense taking that next step to go along with that young pitching that you're high on?
Some pretty good additions that have been picked up this year. Corey Dickerson has always hit. Jonathan Villar can play. Jesus Aguilar, a year removed from being on the All-Star team and driving in 100 runs and hitting, I don't know if he hit 30 or right around that. So you start adding in Francisco. You never know what Matt Kemp's going to do, adding into that. Matt Joyce is another guy that is another piece of adding to a Brian Anderson. Miggy, is Isan going to step forward? Is our younger guys going to push through? So, you obviously the guys we brought in, we feel like are going to be productive players, and we also think our young guys are still coming that have been here.
Donnie, you talk about the versatility of some of the guys you guys obviously signed, VR, and some of the other guys you have on the roster. Where do you start with them? I know obviously they can move all over the field, but where will the Villar start?
We're going to mess around with center field and see if that's a position that he can handle. I mean, you kind of look at Jonathan and you really feel like he's the best athlete on the field. When you watch him play and the energy and the movement, this guy, you really do feel like this is the best athlete on the field. And so we're going to give it a shot. We think he fits there with our club, and our pieces would be great if he's able to pick that up and be a guy that you feel like you can put out there. But again, we've got spring training to see that. He's not played a lot of outfield. We know he can play short. We know he can play second. He's played some third. So there's options whatever way we go. But I think we're gonna see what center field looks like. We've talked to Jonathan about it. And his mindset has been, I'm here to win. I'll give it a try. As long as he gives us an honest effort into that, we'll see where it goes. And if it doesn't look like it's going to work, then we'll pivot and make some adjustments.
Is he going to lead off? I know you could do a lot of combinations with your lineup, but
Talking with John, I know he led off a lot last year, but also right-handed, he hit back in the order a little bit. That's kind of his power side. So, we'll see where it goes. But I think he is a guy that profiles up there at the top. He's a base stealer. He's a good base runner. Switch hitter, allows you to mix and match with the two hole, so that's a starting point.